Welcome to our deep dive into prepping for a university literature lecturer interview. We've got some really interesting resources from RoleCatcher.
Oh yeah, RoleCatcher.
We've got career guides, interview guides, and they even use AI to analyze job descriptions
Wow.
and help tailor your application.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a literary tailor crafting the perfect suit
Okay.
for a specific occasion.
Yeah.
That's what their AI does. You even get feedback on interview answers.
That's pretty neat.
It is pretty neat. It's like having a digital coach in your corner, ready to help you land that dream job.
I think it is fascinating how technology is changing the game.
Right.
Speaking of changing the game, let's break down what a university literature lecturer actually does.
Okay, so imagine yourself. You're in a lecture hall, sharing your passion for literature with a room full of eager students. What does that look like day to day?
I think day to day it looks like a literary detective. You're guiding students through the twists and turns of literary analysis,
Yep.
the historical context, and all those juicy debates about meaning and interpretation. But it's not just about teaching. You're also contributing to the world of literature through your own research and publishing. So you're adding your own unique voice to the conversation.
I've noticed there's some variations in the job title. You see things like subject professor or even just lecturer. Is there a difference between those?
Yeah, those subtle differences in the titles can actually offer clues about the institution's structure and the specific focus of the role.
Okay.
And that's where I think RoleCatcher's AI can come in really handy.
Yep.
Imagine having a digital detective that scans job postings and tells you exactly which skills to emphasize.
Wow.
That's what RoleCatcher's AI can do, helping you decode the language of academia and tailor your application perfectly.
So it's like having a cheat sheet.
Kinda.
Okay. So let's fast forward to the interview itself.
Okay.
What are some of those make or break questions that might come up? RoleCatcher has identified 8 key questions we're going to go through today. I remember being so nervous about this one.
Yeah.
In my early interviews. What inspired you to become a literature lecturer?
It sounds simple,
Right.
but it's your chance to create a captivating narrative. It's your chance to reveal the why behind your passion.
So it's not just about saying I love books.
Exactly. You've got to share the aha moment that ignited your literary fire. Was it a particular novel? Was it a teacher who opened your eyes to new worlds? Or was it even a personal experience that transformed your understanding of literature?
Okay.
This is your chance to showcase your unique journey and connect it to your aspirations as an educator.
Yeah.
Don't hold back. Let that enthusiasm shine through.
And what about those follow-up questions? I always struggled with those.
I think they might delve deeper into specific aspects of your story. For instance, they might ask, how has that defining moment shaped your teaching philosophy?
Okay.
Think of it as an opportunity to link your past experiences to your present goals.
Yeah.
To demonstrate how those aha moments have evolved into a thoughtful approach to teaching and mentoring students.
Okay, so you nailed that first question. You impressed them with your captivating story. What comes next?
Well, I think they might ask about how you would design your syllabus. The interviewer wants to see how you transform a stack of books into a dynamic learning experience.
It's not just listing a bunch of books.
Definitely not. It's about creating a roadmap for exploration, a journey through the literary landscape. And it needs to be tailored to the specific students you'll be teaching.
Right.
So consider the level of the course, the learning objectives, and the interests of your students.
Yeah.
Are you guiding freshmen through their first encounter with literary analysis? Or are you engaging seasoned seniors in a spirited debate about postmodern theory?
And this is where I think RoleCatcher can be really helpful again, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's AI can analyze syllabi from similar courses, and it can even factor in current academic trends to help you craft a syllabus that's both engaging and relevant.
It's like having a co-pilot for syllabus design.
Yeah.
Helping you navigate all the complexities of curriculum development.
Right.
So you presented your syllabus, the conversation's flowing. What other challenges might pop up?
I think then they might shift gears to technology and ask, how do you incorporate technology into your teaching?
I always find this one tricky because technology is constantly changing.
I agree. You need to think of yourself as a tech-savvy explorer, navigating the digital landscape to discover the best tools for the job.
Oh.
Don't just list software platforms, though. Share specific examples of how you've used technology to engage students, to facilitate collaboration, or to create more accessible learning experiences.
Okay, so like...
Maybe you've used interactive whiteboards to bring historical maps to life, or online discussion forums to foster debate about controversial themes.
Right, and they might even hit you with a follow-up on that. Something like, how do you ensure equal access to technology and address digital literacy?
That's a good one.
Because accessibility and responsible tech use are such hot topics these days.
You're right. Be prepared to discuss how you create inclusive learning environments. Make sure all students can access and engage with technology effectively.
Okay.
You might mention strategies for providing tech support, using open educational resources, or teaching critical media literacy skills.
So it's all about demonstrating a thoughtful and ethical approach to technology, not just tech for tech's sake.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about something near and dear to my heart, critical thinking.
Ah, yes, the cornerstone of any good literature program.
They're going to ask about that.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely ask. How do you encourage critical thinking in your students?
I always get a little nervous with this one.
Yeah.
How do you articulate something so essential without sounding too abstract?
I think you need to think of it as lighting those aha moments for your students.
Okay.
Those times when their perspectives shift and they see literature in a whole new light. So share concrete examples of how you foster critical thinking in your classroom. Do you use Socratic seminars to spark debate? Do you challenge students to analyze text from multiple perspectives? Or do you encourage them to apply literary concepts to real-world issues?
Those are all great examples.
Yeah.
What about follow-up questions on this one?
I think they might ask about assessment. So something like, how do you measure a student's ability to think critically?
Okay.
And it's about demonstrating how you assess those elusive thought processes, how you design assignments that go beyond rote memorization, and truly challenge students to grapple with complex ideas.
I always struggle to connect those abstract concepts to real-world assessment strategies.
Yeah. Think of it as designing assessments that mirror the critical thinking you want to see in your students.
Okay.
Maybe you ask them to write an essay comparing two seemingly unrelated texts, or you challenge them to create a presentation that analyzes the influence of a particular literary movement on contemporary culture.
Okay, so we've covered some pretty weighty topics. Inspiring students, incorporating technology, and nurturing critical thinking. What other hurdles might pop up?
They might ask, how do you assess student learning and provide feedback?
So it's not just about grading papers and slapping on a letter grade.
Definitely not. You need to be a guide, a mentor who provides feedback that helps students grow and develop their skills.
Right, and that's such an important point. How do you convey that in an interview setting?
Think of it as offering a toolbox of assessment strategies. Exams, essays, projects, presentations, the whole shebang.
Okay.
The key is to demonstrate how you use those assessments to gather information about student learning, and then provide feedback that's specifically actionable and tailored to each student's individual needs.
Okay, so it's about moving beyond the red pen and creating a feedback loop that fosters genuine growth.
Yeah.
What kind of follow-up questions might come from this one?
I think they might ask, can you share an example of a time when you had to adapt your feedback approach to meet the needs of a particular student?
Okay.
It's a chance to demonstrate flexibility, to show how you personalize your feedback to ensure that each student feels seen, heard, and supported.
So it's about being a learning detective, constantly searching for clues about how each student learns best.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm feeling a lot more prepared to tackle these questions. But what about the bigger picture? The career path itself?
Let's talk about that. RoleCatcher's Career Guide offers some great insights into navigating those early stages of your academic journey.
Okay, so imagine you aced the interview. You landed that entry-level lecturer position. What does that typically look like?
Think of it as an apprenticeship. You're learning from seasoned mentors and honing your craft.
Okay.
You might assist with lectures, grade papers, and even collaborate on research projects.
Wow.
It's a chance to gain practical experience, contribute to the department, and build those all-important relationships with colleagues.
I love that image of being a literary apprentice.
Yeah.
Soaking up knowledge from the masters.
Yeah. And speaking of apprenticeships, RoleCatcher's AI can play a valuable role in those early stages, too. Imagine having a digital mentor that can analyze your teaching materials, provide feedback on your presentation style, and even connect you with relevant professional development opportunities.
It's like having a personal assistant for your academic career, helping you stay organized, focused, and on track for success.
It is, and it can even help you prepare for the next stage of your career.
Okay.
Speaking of which, let's talk about those aspirations.
So you've paid your dues in those early years, honed your skills, and made a name for yourself in the department. What's next? Tenure?
Well, tenure is certainly a common goal. It offers job security and the freedom to pursue your research passions.
Right.
But it's not the only path. RoleCatcher's guide highlights a range of possibilities, from department chair to dean to even exploring administrative roles within the university, or venturing into publishing or educational consulting.
That's like choosing your own adventure in the world of academia.
It is.
I like that.
And remember, continuous learning is key in this field. Think of yourself as a literary detective, always on the hunt for new clues and fresh perspectives. Whether it's pursuing advanced degrees, attending conferences, or simply carving out time for reading and reflection, the most successful literature lecturers embrace the joy of lifelong learning.
That's a great point. It's not just about getting that job.
Yeah.
It's about nurturing that passion for literature and sharing it with others.
Right.
But let's be realistic. Before we start daydreaming about publishing books and leading departments, we need to conquer that interview.
You're right. Let's dive back into those interview questions.
Oh.
Where did we leave off?
I believe we were about to delve into the importance of diversity and inclusion in the curriculum. This one is close to my heart, and I remember feeling a little lost on how to articulate it effectively in my early interviews.
It's a crucial question, and it's about moving beyond token representation and truly weaving diverse voices and perspectives into the fabric of your teaching.
So it's not just about including a few texts by authors from underrepresented groups.
It's much more than that. It's about creating a learning environment where those diverse voices are not just present, but truly valued and amplified.
Yeah.
It's about challenging students to think critically about how issues of race, gender, sexuality, class, and ability are represented and explored in the texts they study.
Yeah.
And it's about being mindful of the language we use, the assumptions we make, and the power dynamics we might unconsciously perpetuate in the classroom.
It's a tall order.
Yeah.
How do you convey all that in a concise and compelling way?
Think of it as a tapestry woven with threads of different cultures, experiences, and perspectives.
Okay.
Share specific examples of how you've incorporated diversity and inclusion into your teaching.
Okay.
Maybe you've designed a course that focuses on marginalized voices in literature, or perhaps you've facilitated discussions about the intersection of literature and social justice issues.
What about follow-up questions on this one?
I think they might delve deeper into specific pedagogical strategies or ask you to share an example of how you've navigated challenging conversations about identity and representation in your classroom. It's a chance to demonstrate your commitment to fostering open and respectful dialogue and to showcase your ability to guide students through complex and sometimes sensitive discussions.
It's about being a facilitator, a guide who helps students navigate those sometimes choppy waters of identity and representation.
It is.
So important.
Speaking of learning, let's move on to another important question about staying current in the ever-evolving world of literature.
Okay, so they ask, how do you stay up to date with new developments in literature and literary theory? And I remember feeling overwhelmed by this one. It feels like such a vast and ever-changing field. How do you even stay on top of it?
You need to think of yourself as a literary detective, always on the hunt for new clues and fresh perspectives.
Right.
You've got to be specific about the journals you read, the conferences you attend, the online forums you follow, and even those late-night deep dives into literary blogs and podcasts.
So it's about showing that you're not just keeping up. You're actively engaged in those ongoing conversations that are shaping the field of literature. What about follow-up questions on this one?
They might ask you to share an example of a recent development in literary theory that you found particularly intriguing, or to discuss how you incorporate those new ideas into your teaching or research. Okay. It's a chance to demonstrate your intellectual curiosity, your ability to connect theory to practice, and your commitment to lifelong learning.
So it's about showing that you're not just a teacher. You're a student too.
Right.
Always eager to expand your horizons.
And that intellectual curiosity is contagious. It inspires your students to become lifelong learners as well.
Okay.
Speaking of inspiration, let's talk about another essential aspect of academic life.
How do you balance teaching, research, and those other professional responsibilities?
I remember feeling like I was constantly juggling those three balls in the air, never quite sure if I was doing any of them justice.
Yes, the eternal balancing act of academic life. It's about showcasing your organizational skills, your ability to prioritize effectively, and your commitment to maintaining a sustainable work-life balance. So it's not about working all hours of the day and night.
Definitely not. Share specific strategies you use to manage your time and energy.
Okay.
Do you block out specific hours for research and writing? Do you use project management tools to stay on top of deadlines? Do you prioritize tasks and delegate when possible? And most importantly, do you make time for self-care? and those activities that nourish your soul and prevent burnout.
So it's about showing that you're not just a machine, you're a human being who understands the importance of balance and well-being.
Exactly.
What about follow-up questions for this one?
They might ask, how do you handle those inevitable moments when deadlines collide or unexpected challenges arise?
Okay.
It's a chance to showcase your problem-solving skills, your ability to stay calm under pressure, and your commitment to finding solutions that work for both you and your students.
Okay, so it's about being a master juggler,
Yeah.
able to keep all those balls in the air while maintaining a sense of grace and composure. I'm feeling a lot more confident about tackling these questions now. But before we move on to the next one, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Oh, you mean the power of RoleCatcher's AI?
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon in our job search arsenal.
It is.
Can you remind us how this AI magic works?
Imagine having a digital detective that scans job postings, identifies the key skills and experience employers are seeking, and then helps you tailor your application materials to highlight those specific qualifications.
Wow.
That's RoleCatcher's AI in a nutshell.
It's like having a personal stylist for your resume and cover letter,
Precisely.
making sure you're putting your best foot forward.
And the AI can even analyze your interview answers, providing feedback on your clarity, your confidence, and your ability to connect your experiences to the specific requirements of the role.
So it's like having a virtual coach in your corner,
Yeah,
providing personalized guidance and support every step of the way.
it is.
Okay, now that we've had that AI pep talk, let's dive back into those interview questions.
Sounds good. Where did we leave off?
I believe we're about to tackle the question of what inspired you to become a literature lecturer. That classic, why this field question. It might seem straightforward, but it's a chance to really showcase your passion and connect your personal journey to your professional aspirations.
It's like crafting a compelling narrative, one that reveals the why behind your passion.
Right.
Think back to the defining moments that sparked your love for literature. Was it a particular book, a teacher who opened your eyes to new worlds, or maybe a life experience that changed your perspective?
Oh.
Share that story authentically, highlighting how it ignited your desire to share the power of literature with others.
I love that. It's about showcasing your unique story and connecting it to your teaching goals.
Yeah.
And don't hold back. Let that enthusiasm shine through.
Exactly. Enthusiasm is contagious. It's what makes teaching come alive.
Right.
And speaking of bringing things to life, let's move on to another crucial question.
How do you approach designing your course syllabus? I remember feeling a little intimidated by this one.
Yeah.
It's like being asked to create a map for an uncharted territory, right?
It can feel daunting, but think of it as an opportunity to share your vision for a literary adventure. The journey through the world of ideas, stories, and characters that will captivate your students.
So it's not just about listing a bunch of books and calling it a day.
Definitely not. It's about crafting a roadmap. That leads students through a carefully curated selection of texts, engages them in meaningful discussions, and helps them develop those essential critical thinking skills.
Right.
You need to start by considering the student population. Are you teaching freshmen who are just embarking on their literary journey, or are you guiding seasoned seniors through the complexities of literary theory?
That's a great point. The level and interests of the students will greatly influence the texts we choose and the approaches we take.
Exactly. Then articulate your process for selecting texts. Do you focus on a particular period, genre, or theme? Do you prioritize canonical works, or do you incorporate more contemporary or experimental texts? And how do you ensure that your syllabus reflects a diversity of voices and perspectives?
And this is a good time to sprinkle in some of our own research interests, right? Show how our expertise informs our curriculum design.
Absolutely. Demonstrating that you're not just a teacher, but also a scholar strengthens your credibility and allows you to share your passions with your students. And speaking of passions, let's talk about another question that might come up.
Okay, so they ask, how do you incorporate technology into your teaching methods? I remember feeling a bit apprehensive about this one. Technology is always changing. How do you stay ahead of the curve and ensure that your teaching is both innovative and effective?
You need to think of yourself as a tech-savvy explorer, navigating the digital landscape to discover the best tools for the job. Don't just list software or platforms. Share specific examples of how you've used technology to engage students, to facilitate collaboration, or to create more accessible learning experiences.
Okay, so like
Maybe you've created online discussion forums that fostered lively student engagement, or incorporated multimedia elements into your lectures to enhance understanding, or use digital tools for collaborative writing projects. That allowed students to learn from one another.
And I imagine they might also be interested in how we approach digital literacy and critical media consumption.
Absolutely. It's important to demonstrate that we're not just teaching students how to use technology, but also how to think critically about the information they encounter online.
Right.
We might talk about how we teach students to evaluate sources, identify bias, and engage in respectful online dialogue.
It's about being responsible digital citizens, both in the classroom and in the wider world.
Exactly. And speaking of responsibility, let's talk about another important aspect of academic life. The delicate balance between teaching research and those other professional responsibilities.
They ask, how do you balance teaching research and other professional responsibilities? I remember feeling like I was constantly juggling those three balls in the air, never quite sure if I was doing any of them justice.
It's a common challenge in academia, but think of it as a dance, a fluid movement between different roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
It's about finding a rhythm that works for you, one that allows you to excel in all areas without sacrificing your well-being.
So it's not about working all hours of the day and night.
Definitely not. It's about being strategic with your time and energy, setting boundaries, and prioritizing self-care.
Okay.
Share specific strategies you use to manage your workload, such as blocking out dedicated time for research and writing, using project management tools to stay organized, and delegating tasks when possible.
It's about working smarter, not harder. And I imagine they might also be interested in how we handle those inevitable moments when deadlines collide or unexpected challenges arise.
Absolutely. It's a chance to showcase your problem-solving skills, your ability to adapt to changing circumstances, and your commitment to finding solutions that benefit both you and your students.
Okay.
You might share an example of a time when you had to adjust your schedule or prioritize certain tasks to meet a pressing deadline or address a student's urgent need.
So it's about being flexible, resourceful, and always focused on the big picture.
Exactly.
I'm feeling a lot more confident about tackling these questions now. But before we move on to the next one, I want to take a moment to acknowledge how important it is to tailor our responses to the specific institution and department where we're interviewing.
That's a great point. Researching the institution's values, mission, and culture can help us align our answers with their specific priorities.
Okay.
It shows that we've done our homework and that we're genuinely interested in becoming part of their community.
It's like customizing your outfit for a special occasion, making sure you're dressed for success.
Exactly. And speaking of success, let's dive back into those interview questions.
Okay.
Where did we leave off?
I believe we're about to discuss how to incorporate technology into our teaching methods. It's a question that requires us to be both innovative and adaptable.
It's a dynamic field, and it's about finding that sweet spot between embracing the possibilities of technology and staying true to the core values of literary study.
Right. So how do we demonstrate that we're comfortable with technology while also being mindful of its potential pitfalls?
You can start by sharing specific examples of how you've used technology effectively in your teaching. Have you created online discussion forums that fostered lively student engagement? Have you incorporated multimedia elements into your lectures to enhance understanding? Have you used digital tools for collaborative writing projects that allowed students to learn from one another?
And it's important to highlight how those technology choices align with our pedagogical goals and enhance student learning.
Exactly. Technology should never be used for technology's sake. It's about finding the right tools for the right tasks and using them in ways that support our teaching objectives. And speaking of objectives, let's move on to another important question.
Okay, so they ask, how do you encourage critical thinking in your students? I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed by this one. How do you articulate something so essential without sounding too abstract or theoretical?
Think of it as planting seeds of curiosity, nurturing those aha moments when students' perspectives shift and they discover new layers of meaning in the texts they study.
Okay.
Share specific examples of how you foster critical thinking in your classroom.
Like?
Do you use Socratic seminars to spark debate? Do you encourage students to analyze texts from multiple perspectives? Do you challenge them to apply literary concepts to real-world issues?
Those are all great examples, and I imagine they might also be interested in how we assess critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
It's one thing to encourage those thought processes, but how do we measure them?
That's a valid question. And it's about designing assessments that go beyond rote memorization and truly challenge students to engage with complex ideas.
Okay.
We might talk about using essay questions that require students to analyze and interpret texts, or group projects that encourage collaboration and critical dialogue.
So it's about finding creative ways to assess those elusive thought processes that are at the heart of critical thinking.
Exactly. And speaking of creativity, let's talk about another crucial aspect of teaching: Assessment and feedback.
Okay, they ask, how do you assess student learning and provide feedback? I remember feeling a little apprehensive about this one. It's not just about grading papers and slapping on a letter grade, right?
You're absolutely right. It's about being a Gaia mentor who uses assessment and feedback to help students grow and develop their skills.
That's an important distinction. How do you convey that in an interview setting?
Think of it as offering a toolbox of assessment strategies. Exams, essays, projects, presentations, the whole shebang. The key is to demonstrate how you use those assessments to gather information about student learning. And then provide feedback that's specific, actionable, and tailored to each student's individual needs.
So it's about moving beyond the red pen and creating a feedback loop that fosters genuine growth.
Yeah.
What about follow-up questions? They might ask something like, can you share an example of a time when you had to adapt your feedback approach to meet the needs of a particular student?
That's a great point. It's a chance to demonstrate flexibility, to show how you personalize your feedback, to ensure that each student feels seen, heard, and supported. It's about recognizing that each student learns differently, and that a one-size-fits-all approach to feedback simply won't work.
It's like being a learning detective, constantly searching for clues about how each student learns best, and adapting our methods accordingly.
Exactly. And speaking of adaptation, let's move on to another question that often comes up in academic interviews.
They ask, how do you maintain a work-life balance, especially in a demanding field like academia? I remember feeling like I was constantly struggling to find that elusive balance. It's a challenge in any profession, but especially in academia, where the lines between work and life can feel so blurry.
It's true. The demands of teaching, research, and service can easily consume our lives if we let them. But it's important to remember that we're not machines. We're human beings who need time to recharge, connect with loved ones, and pursue those activities that bring us joy and fulfillment.
So how do we answer this question honestly, without raising red flags about our commitment to the job?
You need to be authentic and share specific strategies you use to maintain a healthy work-life balance.
Okay.
Do you schedule time for exercise hobbies or spending time with loved ones? Do you set boundaries around work hours and email communication? Do you prioritize tasks and delegate when possible? And do you make time for self-care practices, like mindfulness meditation or simply taking a walk in nature?
So it's about creating a sustainable lifestyle, one that allows us to thrive both professionally and personally.
Exactly. And speaking of thriving, let's talk about another important aspect of academic life. The importance of ongoing professional development.
They ask, how do you stay current in your field and continue to grow as a scholar and educator? I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed by this one. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Yeah.
There's just so much information out there.
It can feel daunting, but think of it as a journey of lifelong learning, a continuous exploration of new ideas and perspectives.
Okay.
Share specific examples of how you stay engaged with the latest developments in your field.
Like,
Do you attend conferences and workshops? Do you read academic journals and books? Do you participate in online forums or professional development programs?
right. And it's not just about formal learning opportunities. It's also about staying curious and engaged in those informal ways.
Yeah.
Like following thought leaders on social media, listening to podcasts, or attending lectures and readings in our community.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a mindset of continuous learning, one that embraces both structured learning opportunities and those spontaneous moments of intellectual discovery.
So it's about being a lifelong learner, both inside and outside the classroom.
Yeah. And speaking of the classroom, let's talk about another question that often comes up in academic interviews.
You mean the one about research?
Yes.
Okay, they might ask, what are your current research projects and how do those connect to your teaching? I remember feeling a little nervous about this one. It's like being asked to showcase the inner workings of my mind, to explain how my research passions translate into meaningful learning experiences for my students.
It's a question that gets to the heart of what it means to be. It really gets to the heart of what it means to be a scholar teacher.
Right.
Someone who's both deeply engaged in the creation of knowledge and passionate about sharing that knowledge with others.
So how do we showcase that interconnectedness and demonstrate the value of our research to both ourselves and our students?
You can start by providing a brief overview of your current research projects, highlighting the key questions you're exploring and the methodologies you're using. Then you connect those research interests to your teaching by sharing examples of how your scholarly work has influenced your course design, your choice of texts, or even your approach to classroom discussions.
It's about showing that our research isn't just an isolated activity. It informs and enriches our teaching in countless ways.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to talk about how your teaching has also influenced your research.
Okay.
Maybe a student's question sparked a new line of inquiry, or perhaps a classroom discussion led you to reconsider a particular theoretical framework.
Yeah, that kind of reciprocity between teaching and research is really exciting. It shows that we're constantly learning and growing, both as scholars and as teachers.
Exactly. And speaking of growth, let's move on to another question that often comes up in academic interviews.
Okay, they ask, what is your teaching philosophy, and how do you approach creating a positive and engaging learning environment?
I remember feeling a bit intimidated by this one. It's like being asked to sum up my entire approach to teaching in a few concise sentences. It can feel like a lot of pressure. But think of it as an opportunity to share your passion for teaching and your vision for the classroom.
Okay.
Start by reflecting on your own experiences as a learner. What kind of teachers inspired you? What kind of learning environments fostered your growth and development? What values and principles do you believe are essential for effective teaching and learning?
It's about articulating our core beliefs about education and sharing our vision for what a truly transformative learning experience can look like.
Exactly. And don't just talk about abstract concepts. Provide concrete examples of how you bring those beliefs to life in your classroom. Do you prioritize student-centered learning? Do you create opportunities for collaboration and dialogue? Do you foster a sense of community and belonging?
So it's about showing that we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk.
Right.
And I imagine they might also be interested in how we handle challenges in the classroom, those inevitable moments when students disengage or disagreements arise.
You're absolutely right. It's a chance to showcase our problem-solving skills, our ability to adapt to different learning styles, and our commitment to creating an inclusive and respectful learning environment.
Okay.
We might talk about our strategies for facilitating open and respectful dialogue, providing individualized support, or adjusting our teaching methods to meet diverse learning needs.
It's about being adaptable, resourceful, and always focused on creating a positive and supportive learning experience for all of our students.
Exactly. And speaking of support, let's move on to another important aspect of academic life, the role of mentorship.
Okay, so they ask, how do you approach mentoring students, both inside and outside the classroom? I remember feeling a bit unsure about this one in my early interviews. It's a role that extends far beyond the formal boundaries of the classroom, isn't it?
It is. Mentorship is about guiding students on their academic journeys, supporting their intellectual and personal growth, and helping them develop the skills and confidence they need to succeed.
So how do we showcase our mentoring expertise and demonstrate our commitment to supporting student growth?
You can start by sharing specific examples of how you've mentored students in the past. Have you advised students on research projects, provided feedback on their writing, or helped them navigate the challenges of graduate school?
Okay.
And don't be afraid to talk about those informal ways you've mentored students, like through conversations during office hours, recommendations for conferences and workshops, or simply being a listening ear when they needed someone to talk to.
It's about being a guide, a confidant, and a champion for our students.
Exactly. And speaking of champions, let's talk about another important aspect of academic life: collaboration.
Okay, so they ask, how do you approach collaborating with colleagues both within your department and across disciplines? I remember feeling a little apprehensive about this one, a bit of an introvert, and the thought of collaborating with others, especially those from different disciplines, used to feel a bit daunting.
Collaboration can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. It's about bringing together different perspectives, sharing expertise, and working together to achieve common goals. So how do we showcase our collaborative spirit and demonstrate our ability to build strong and productive working relationships?
Start by sharing specific examples of successful collaborations you've been part of in the past. Have you co-authored articles or books? Have you worked on interdisciplinary research projects? Have you collaborated on teaching initiatives or curriculum development?
It's about showcasing our ability to work effectively as part of a team, to share ideas, to navigate conflicts, and to celebrate collective achievements.
Exactly. And speaking of achievements, let's talk about another important aspect of academic life: service.
Okay, so they ask, how do you see service contributing to your role as a faculty member? I remember feeling a little confused by this one in my early interviews. I thought my primary responsibilities were teaching and research.
Service is often overlooked,
Yeah.
but it's an essential part of academic life. It's about contributing to the smooth running of the department. It is an essential part. It really is. It's about contributing to the smooth running of the department, the university, and even the wider academic community. Okay, that makes sense. But how do we talk about service in a way that's meaningful and memorable? I don't want to just list off committees I've been on.
I think you need to think of service as an opportunity to make a difference, to use your skills and expertise to support causes you care about.
Okay.
Have you served on committees that promote diversity and inclusion? Have you mentored junior faculty? Or helped organize conferences that bring scholars together? Have you volunteered your time to community organizations that connect literature with the wider world?
It's about showing that we're not just scholars tucked away in ivory towers. We're engaged citizens who care about making a positive impact.
Exactly. And remember, service doesn't always have to be a formal commitment. It can also be those small acts of kindness and support that create a more positive and collegial work environment.
That's a really important point. It's about creating a culture of generosity and support where everyone feels valued and respected. Okay, I think we've covered a pretty comprehensive range of interview questions. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we prepare for these conversations?
Yes. I think it's important to remember that an interview is not just an interrogation. It's also an opportunity for us to learn more about the institution, the department, and the people we might be working with.
That's a great point. We should go in with questions of our own right.
Absolutely. Asking thoughtful questions shows that we're curious, engaged, and genuinely interested in the position.
So what kinds of questions should we be asking?
Well, think about what you really want to know about the department, the university, and the people you might be working with. You might ask about the department's culture, the opportunities for collaboration, or the resources available for research and teaching. And don't be afraid to ask about the interviewer's own experiences and perspectives.
Okay.
It's a chance to build rapport and get a better sense of what it's like to be part of that community.
Great advice. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of university literature lecturers, is there one final piece of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think the most important thing is to be yourself. Let your passion for literature, your commitment to teaching, and your unique perspective shine through. Remember, an interview is not just about proving your qualifications. It's also about finding the right fit, a place where you can thrive both personally and professionally.
That's such an important reminder. It's not just about getting the job. It's about finding a place where you feel valued, supported, and inspired to do your best work.
Exactly. And don't forget, RoleCatcher is there to support you every step of the way. Their resources and AI-powered tools can help you prepare for those tough questions. Tailor your application materials and approach the entire process with confidence.
What a fantastic resource. I highly encourage our listeners to check out RoleCatcher and see how it can help them achieve their career goals.
And remember, the journey of 1,000 lectures begins with a single step. So take that step, embrace the challenge, and never stop learning and growing.
That's such an inspiring message. Thank you for guiding us through this deep dive into the world of university literature lecturers.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all those aspiring lecturers out there, good luck. And may your passion for literature light the way.
Oh, like that.
And that concludes our deep dive for today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.